Hello and welcome to the Bincang Nusantara webinar. My name is Mo Nazrul and your host for this show. Today I'm speaking with Peter Yeoh to discover how port cities served as crucial hubs for global food migration and cultural exchange. Before we begin, let me tell our audience a few things about the webinar and our format. We can't see or hear you, so get comfortable and please enjoy the show. We also want you to know that today's show is being recorded 30 minutes after the show. You can come back to the URL you are using now to watch the recording. This does not mean you cannot ask a question. You may ask a question at any time by typing your questions in Slido. All you need to do is scan the QR code and enter the number. You can upvote the question you like, and the questions with the highest votes will be addressed at the end of the show. So, stay tuned. You can address or access additional content, handouts from my guests, and links to connect on social media in the attachment tab. So be sure to check that out. We also have a poll, and we'd love to hear your participation. A little plug about the co-organizers of Bincang Nusantara webinar. Penang Hidden Gems is a non-government organization, NGO, dedicated to uncovering and preserving the lesser-known cultural, historical, and national treasures of Penang. In a world where popular tourist spots often overshadow equally significant but less publicized locations, we shine a light on these hidden gems to ensure their stories are told and their beauty is appreciated. We believe that by promoting sustainable tourism and fostering a deeper understanding of Penang's diverse heritage, we can empower local communities, support traditional crafts, and safeguard the unique character of our island for future generations. Join us in exploring the authentic soul of Penang, one hidden gem at a time. A little introduction about our co-host of Bincang Nusantara. Amar Alwandi is a statistician who founded Nusa Angka after being inspired by the greatness of the Sriwijaya and Malay civilizations. Nusa Angka presents historical content that strengthens brotherhood among nations in Southeast Asia. A little introduction about our co-host of Bincang Nusantara. Amar Alwandi is a statistician who founded Nusa Angka after being inspired by the greatness of the Sriwijaya and Malay civilizations. Nusa Angka presents historical content that strengthens brotherhood among nations in Southeast Asia. Mo Nazrul is the chairman of Penang Hidden Gems. From music management to Penang digital marketing, Mo Nazrul brings diverse experiences to Penang Hidden Gems. His relationship building and showcasing his skills ensure warm welcomes and meaningful connections for all. Peter Yeoh is a Penang-based food writer who contributes frequently to both local and international publications. He started life as an IT security specialist at the Singapore Broadcast Corporation, where he was constantly roped in by his broadcast journalist colleagues as part of their Makan Kaki gang, due to their shared love for food and the willingness to try anything at least once. A sixth-generation Penang Baba, he holds a deep passion for the state's heritage, cultures, and traditions. He loves to delve into the history and origins of Penang food and has written on the subject for the Peranakan Singapore and Penang Monthly, and is presently the Penang writer for the Michelin Guide. Peter is also one of the administrators for Penang Walkabouts, a 110,000-member social media group where people who are interested about the history, arts, culture, food, and lifestyle in Penang come together. All right. So I would like to thank Emily for putting that introduction together, because I I can never remember the format. So thank you for pre-recording me, putting the audio on the slides. And as you can tell, right here we have slido.com where you can ask all your questions. And I would like to say that this is a international webinar because of Amar. So Amar is now, are you in Jakarta today? Okay, I'll
Yeah,
oh,
I
okay.
in Jakarta today.
Just
Yesterday
wanted to
I
make sure.
was in
So,
Riau and Minangkabau area, Padang, and it's a busy week.
yeah,
So, but
I kind of
I
figured. Hence why
may
I had
attend
to
this.
ask. Yeah. So
Welcome back.
yeah, welcome back. So he's now tuning in from Jakarta, and he is the co-host for this webinar. I'm excited because this is our first international collaboration, the first, hopefully, of many to come. And we also have Peter here, who's going to be sharing with us the the history of food and how it unites us. Because when I met Amar in Jakarta, I noticed that we had a lot of similarities. It seems that we were all part of the same brotherhood of seafarers. It's just that, as history would go, borders were drawn and we became two separate entities. But without further ado, actually, Amar, would you like to have anything to say? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dominate this as one of the hosts. Would you like to say something to introduce?
Yeah. It's honor to be here and collaborate with Penang Jam, and let's get rock.
All right,
Nice,
let's get rolling.
nice and sweet. All right, without further ado, we have Peter. Peter Yeoh.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? It's fine.
Actually, yeah, really clear.
Oh, great. Yeah. I'm so excited to be invited for this Bincang Nusantara. I've always been very excited, very interested about food and sharing my knowledge about the history of food in the region. Some of you who are from Penang Hidden Gems and also from the Penang Tour Guides Association who have remembered me like 2.5 years ago, I conducted a Penang Heritage Food Trail for the tour guides at that time. Clement Liang, who's the president of Penang Tour Guide Association, he wanted to train the Penang tour guides on the history of food, and he asked me to conduct a trail, and that was the very first one. Arising from that, when I became the Michelin guide writer that year, I also had to write a lot about the food. I think last year I wrote about 35 articles for the Michelin guide. A lot of them is about the history of food. How did char kway teow come to this region? Who started the laksa, things like that. So from there, I have to do a lot of research into the evolution of food and what we're eating, where they come from, how it evolved when it came to Penang, So, it's with great excitement that I'd like to share some of it here with you all. Just a bit more about myself. I'm a sixth generation Penangite. My great-great-great-grandfather came to Penang in 1824, which is 200 years ago. He's a Peranakan Hokkien Chinese from Asahan, Kabupaten Asahan, which is south of Medan. So our family has been in Medan and Asahan for, like about a century before we came to Penang. So even the food in Penang, we notice have a lot of what we share with the Medan people of North Sumatra. So from there, you already get an inkling of the kind of influences that we have, going to and fro. Okay, to the slides. The advent of maritime trade in the Nusantara. Now, Nusantara has been trading with each other for 2 millennia. It's been going on for a long time. If you talk about the spice trade, the Silk Route. The Silk Route from China to Europe is about it started around maybe 1000 BC, but 1000 years before that was the spice trade, maritime trade route. It was already set up. At that time, the sailors who are Austronesian, they are people from the Nusantara, they are probably modern day Malays and all that. They have been sailing their ships and all that all the way to India and also to Sri Lanka, to bring the goods to trade. So it's been going on for a long time. The people in southern India, in modern day Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Sri Lanka, they've been interacting with the people from the Nusantara for 2 millennia. So of course, when it comes to sharing food and eating together, you would have already early influences from then on, because people are already friends with each other. They are already trading with each other. Okay, so around 500 BC is when the real serious trade links has been forged. And through the centuries after that, there are various port cities that came to the fore, which I'm going to go through with you afterwards in the subsequent slides. Lastly, of course, we have to mention the impact of the Europeans when they came. The Europeans came to take things from us, but they also gave things to us. One of the things that the Europeans really wanted was spices. They've been using spices for 2 millennia or 3 millennia, in fact, 3,000 years in Europe. But a lot of time, where the spices come from is they're kept secret. And sometimes people come up with very fantastical stories about where those spices are from, because they didn't want people to know where they got it from. And of course, we have to thank the Europeans for bringing chilies for us. If they didn't bring chili today, how are we going to cook our curries and all that? Yeah. Okay. How are the Koreans going to make that kimchi? Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please, Emily. Okay. Now, just a bit about the port cities that the major port cities in the region. The earliest is the 7th century that I want to talk about is Rembang and Lasem. Rembang and Lasem are in the northern part of central Java. They have been Chinese who have gone down to Rembang and Lasem since the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty, because they found Tang Dynasty coins there along the coast. And the people who settle there are Hokkien. The Hokkien people are the same kind of people, the same Chinese people who come to Penang, who went to Medan, who went to southern Thailand, who were in, I think Hokkien are the majority of the Chinese in Selangor, the coastal area of southern Malaysia, Johor and all that. Okay? The reason why Hokkien, the Fu Chinese people came is because the Fu Chinese people have been having interaction with the foreign merchants for a very long time. Even at the time when the Mongol dynasty came about, which is the 13th century, there were already settlers from Persia and from Arabia in Quanzhou, Quanzhou. Quanzhou is the oldest port in the Fujian province. So Quanzhou is where, during the Ming dynasty, the Cheng-Ho's 8 treasure ships embarked from there. Earlier on, Quanzhou is also the port where Kublai Khan wanted to invade Japan, and also when he wanted to invade Java in 1293. His ships also sailed from Quanzhou, the port of Quanzhou. That's also where Marco Polo set sail from when he wanted to go back to Venice. So the Quanzhou is a major port in China, and it's in Fujian province, and it's a very cosmopolitan city, even at the 1st century AD. So, which means that the Hokkien people are already very well versed, having also intermarried with the Persians, the Arabs, the Indians who settled there. So, consequently, because of that, the Hokkiens were also the ones who came down to Southeast Asia. They were the first people to come down to Southeast Asia from China. And when they reached Rembang and Lasem, they also set up, I visited Rembang and Lasem in 2019, and we visited a temple called Chu Ang Kiong in Lasem. Is to Ma Chao. Ma Chao is the Chinese the goddess of the sea, and it dates back to 1544. You can imagine how long already they've been there. Okay. Next, I'd like to talk about Kuala Muda in Kedah, which is in northern part of Malaysia. Recently, our archaeologists from the local university Penang have, they've been excavating for the last few decades. Recently, they have found even more new discoveries. In the latest one is Bukit Coras, where they found relics from the Buddhist relics, Buddhist Hindu relics from that site, which gave rise to a lot of excitement. Of course, this also ties in with the fact that during that period in Sumatra itself was the Srivijaya Empire at the time. So Srivijaya is also a Hindu Buddhist empire that encompasses most of Sumatra, Java, over the whole of the Malay Peninsula, and even parts of Borneo. So this all ties in with the interaction that they had at that time already. So won't be, I would surmise to say that it's not an exaggeration to say that even the traders were at Kuala Muda, Kedah, they could be brought in, as part of the trade of the Srivijaya Empire. Okay. So we found the ceramics in the coast, the during the excavation. What's interesting is that we were told during the talk by the archaeologists who were involved, certain areas which today is inland, during that period, back in the 7th or 8th century, they're actually in part of the sea. They're the seabed. So from there, they could tell the ceramics that they found now when they excavated inland, at that time were actually in the harbor. The ships were anchoring in the harbor. They bring bowls and plates, the ceramics for trading. Those on the ship that's broken during the voyage, they throw overboard. So they throw overboard those are actually waste, which they sunk to the seabed. But subsequently, like couple of thousand years later, we excavate this piece of land, that's supposed to be inland, and we found the ceramics. These are actually what was discarded from the ships, the trading ships at the time, back in the 7th and the 8th century. The largest number of ceramic was found between 10th and 13th century. It shows that at that time, that area, which is like modern day Kedah, the Kedah kingdom, that is the peak of their economy. Because why? If you see a lot of ceramic, that means there are a lot of ships. A lot of ships, there's also a lot of wastage, a lot of bowls and plates being broken. So there are a lot of things being thrown overboard. So when you excavate and dig it today, then you realize, oh, okay, there's so much more ceramics being found from that period. It shows at that time there was a lot of trading going on. So 10th and 13th century is also about the time when the Sriwijaya was also reaching the peak. Because at one point the Sriwijaya, I think by the 13th century, they were also under attack by the Cholas and all that, and they start receding. And then the Majapahit Empire, which is Java-based, start taking over. Okay. The next that I want to talk about is, of course, the Palembang, 8th to 10th century Palembang. Palembang is a lot of recent research shows that it's most probably the center of the Sriwijaya Empire, because in the past there were another school of thought saying no, it should be Jambi. Jambi also is a possibility. Anyway, next slide, Emily. Next one we talk about is of course Malacca. Malacca became prominent in the 1400s, which is the 15th century, as the center of trading, especially the spice trade, because a lot of the Nusantara sailors who came from the Kepulauan Maluku, the Moluccas, they bring the wares to Malacca, including the spices, and then that's where they meet the traders from the Middle East, from Persia, from India, who bring a lot of their fragrances, perfumes, and all that. The Indians will bring black pepper as well. And then they'll meet the traders from China who bring silks and ceramics and all that. So from there, they trade in Malacca. And of course, Malacca only had its day for about 100 years before the Portuguese came. The Portuguese, of course, subjugated Malacca in 1511. And after Malacca fall, that's when Aceh started to rise. Aceh in the northern Sumatra, because when the Portuguese took over Malacca, especially the Muslim traders start avoiding Malacca. Those from the Middle East and those from India. And subsequently, even the Chinese traders also avoided Malacca. And they start meeting up in Aceh. So Aceh then, of course, at the time also it absorbed neighboring kingdom like Pasai and PDA and became known as Serambi Mecca, because they became the jumping off point for ships sailing for Muslims to go to Mecca. And then, of course, in Penang, the British came in 1786. That's when Francis Light took possession of the island from the Sultan of Kedah on an agreement. Of course, Francis Light has been in the region for a long time. Even as before that, 1772, that's when he was in Phuket, and that's where he met Martina Roselles, whom he married subsequently. What's interesting about what happened in 1786 is that when Francis Light landed in Penang on the 11th of August, he immediately sent his ship called the Speedwell back to Kuala Sungai Muda, Kedah, to bring back Christian Eurasian refugees, and who landed on the 15th of August in Penang. And when they landed, they called that the Day of Assumption, which they celebrated until today, because it's to assume they are alive. Because these Christian refugees were refugees in Kedah from Phuket. Phuket was taken over by the Siamese king at the time, who then expelled all Christians from there. So the Christians have to escape. That's in the 1770s to Kedah, and they've been there ever since. And they were among the first people who came to Penang when the British set up the new port, their colony. And of course, Penang's subsequently the cuisine has a lot of Thai influences arising from that. And of course, lastly, Singapore in 1890. It was founded by the British, again similar to Penang. That one, they signed an agreement with the Sultanate of Johor. Okay. Next, we go to the next slide. Emily will be on the food. Okay, the food of the port cities. I want to talk about a bit because it's a huge subject. The food of the port cities. So what we are doing today is just to touch a bit on each of it. The cream of it. Subsequently, of course, I like to see this as probably like a catalyst so going forward, people start discussing and asking more questions about what they're eating. Okay, the port cities, where do they get their food from? As we have said earlier, we have had a lot of influences from China, the Chinese, especially the Hokkien. Because the Hokkien came down, then a lot of the food that we adopted from the Chinese have Hokkien names. For example, mee. Yeah, we use mee to refer to noodles. Mee is a Hokkien term. In Cantonese it's called min. Yeah, in just similar in Mandarin. But you can see we use the word mee here, which is Hokkien. Other things that we use include tauhu for tofu. And then in Indonesia, they also have bak mi. Bak mi is actually coming from minced meat, usually pork, with noodle. Similar to in Singapore, we have bak chor mee. Bak chor mee refers to the minced pork or noodle. So, but in Indonesia, they adopted the name and then they shortened it to become bak mi. And then the meatball is bakso. So, so is a Hokkien word for to make round balls, right? Bakso. Lumpia. Lumpia is of course in Malaysia we prefer to use the word popiah. Again, it's a Hokkien word. Pia is referring to biscuit. Po is very thin. Popiah. In Indonesia and in Philippines, they like to use lumpia or lumpia. My understanding in the past was lun means it's very flexible. It's soft and flexible. So it's just lun. But last month I met the Indonesian food expert, Pak William Wongso. And Pak William Wongso said, no, lun refers to lunggue, which is the full moon, terang bulan, which is because the wrapper, before we wrap into the lumpia, is round in shape and white, like the full moon. So for him, lumpia comes from lunggue, pia. Whereas for us, lun is a flexible, thin cake. So you can see there's always been discussions and new discoveries about origins of food, and sometimes we have to debate about it and see who is correct. Okay, when I was in Surabaya many years ago, they also have the Chinese rice ball in the ginger, tang yuan in Malaysia, in Singapore. You make rice ball and then you drop into a water with ginger and sugar. We call it tang yuan. Over there, they call it wedang ronde. And you can see even the term is very interesting because wedang comes from the Javanese word drink, but ronde comes from the Dutch word meaning round. It's a Dutch word for very round. So wedang ronde, drink with round balls. So they adopt the Indonesian, the Javanese adopted it from the Chinese, but the name is from Javanese and the Dutch words. It shows how different culinary cultures actually counter-influence each other. The Hokkien was also in different parts of Malaya. I think they are the main ones who are in Malacca. By the time the Portuguese came, there were no records that say where the Chinese in Malacca are from, but they're quite likely they're from Fujian because that's where the main ports were from. Next slide, Emily. The Indian influence. Indian influence is of course is always there in Southeast Asia. In Malaysia we have ayam kuzi. Ayam kuzi is actually come from Kerala. Kerala is called a chicken kozi. So they have a nandan kozi, which is a chicken curry. And if you look at the recipe, it quite closely approximates what we have here. I'm guessing that the use of spices, the rempah, we call rempah by, I think Indonesia is called bumbu. The use of spices in here is influenced by the Indians there in India. Even the use of chili, because I don't think when the Portuguese came in 1511, to rule Malacca, actually they will come with their cannon and musket and the army, and they will be coming with the chili and say, "Nah, this to introduce you new things to eat," So, but much later, I think the Indians who have been introduced to these spices much earlier on. Vasco da Gama reached Calicut, India in 1501. They take possession of Cochin in 1510, and 1 year later they were in Malacca. So, knowing the Portuguese at a time when they took over a place, they wouldn't have time to cultivate the new crops that they brought with them. As for the Middle Eastern influences, we have always had influences from especially the Yemenis. Yemen's the Hadramis, the Hadramaut. The Hadramaut people have always been seafaring. In fact, they were the ones who actually inspire stories like Sinbad the Sailor, the Sinbad who sailed the 7 seas. Because the Hadrami Arabs are not afraid of the sea, the water, the deep blue ocean. They're not like the desert Arabs who are living, in the desert and would not go near the water. But the Hadramis have always been sailing. They've always using their prows to come to India and all the way down to the Nusantara region. And they brought with them their food, their flatbreads, which are the murtabak. Murtabak, of course, in Malaysia is murtabak. In Indonesia, it's martabak asin. Because Indonesia have another one, the martabak manis, which although have the same name, but it's a totally different food altogether. Next slide, please. Okay, and then finally, of course, the Portuguese influences. Why do the Portuguese come to this part of the world? You're wondering. It's because one of the things that spurred them on was the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks. That occurred in 1453. Okay, so in 1453, Constantinople was the Byzantium Empire, which is the eastern part of the Roman Empire, which has collapsed. So, but the Byzantine Empire is the remainder of what used to be the Roman Empire. When Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453, in a way it disrupted the trade route, the ancient Silk trade route. The Silk route has been going on for 2,000 years, but when the Ottoman Turks took over, they became very hostile to the Christians because they know the Christians are also trying to, the Crusades, for example, is also one of the main Crusades' mission is to restore the Christians' access to the Silk route. So because of that, the Portuguese were at the forefront to look for an alternate route that avoids the land, have to go through the Turkey by going to the sea. So in 1488, that's when Bartholomew Diaz rounded the Cape of Good Hope. And then when he rounded the Cape of Good Hope, the Portuguese found a route to the Indian Ocean. So they could from there, they could access, India and Southeast Asia. 4 years later, after Bartholomew Diaz rounded the Cape of Good Hope, which is Southern Africa, Christopher Columbus discovered America. So when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he discovered a lot of new world crops that does not exist in the old world, especially in Mexico. Corn, chili, even potatoes, So that's when they brought all these new world crops back. And from there, Spain and Portugal were at one kingdom at one time. So the Spanish explorers, Christopher Columbus, although he himself is from Genoa, he was sailing on behalf of, he sailed for Portugal, but it's a Spanish expedition. So subsequently, when the Portuguese came to this part of the world, they brought a lot of these new world crops that they just discovered from the Americas here. So can you imagine, without the Portuguese, we will never have our chili. Prior to the introduction of our sambal, the chili, the lada, all that, the cabai, whatever we call it. Before that, we get our heat from black pepper. Our cooking gets the heat from pepper. In Thailand, in Siam, it's from green peppercorn. Until today, you can see some Thai food cooked using green peppercorn. So these are the hangover from the days before chili is being introduced. Of course, for the civilizations where their cooking already had black pepper, green peppercorn, when they came across red chili, they could embrace it readily. So red chili, although the sambal got a better reception in this part of the world than in Europe. Because when the Portuguese, the Spanish came across chili and spread it to the rest of Europe, the Europeans were not very keen because they find it very spicy. But for people in this part of the world, they're like, wow, we have something even better than black pepper, even better than our green peppercorns. So that's how the reception here was so good. Next is we talk about the British influences. The British came to this part, to Malaya, quite late, although they were in India quite early. The British East India Company was incorporated in India in 1600, which means they've been there for a long, long time. And then they came over here, and then, of course, the impact of the British was felt in our cuisine. Before that, in this part of the world, we had a lot of Portuguese influences also. For example, if you know our love letters, kuih kapek, the mold and even the way it's made is exactly like what the Portuguese call bacuillos. I can share with you the different. Go and Google bacuillos. It looks exactly like kuih kapek. And the Dutch have also a similar one called roleches. So you can see the Dutch, the Portuguese all have exactly the same, I would say, forerunner of our kuih kapek. And also the pineapple tart. When the Portuguese came, they introduced baking as well. Yeah. So the Nyonya will make pineapple tart. And you can see the Nyonya people, the Peranakan, the Straits-born Chinese, our pineapple tart has got lattice design on top. Lattice pastry design. The ones done by Eurasian is different. Eurasian has a three-pointed star. You guys supposed to represent the Holy Trinity. So if people look at a pineapple tart, they can tell whether this is a Eurasian pineapple tart or this is a Nyonya pineapple tart. Sago Gula Melaka is a very popular dessert in this part of the world. Not sure about in Indonesia whether you have similar. It's sago with the brown sugar and coconut milk. That is a very interesting dessert because sago actually grow in this part of the world. It is from Kepulauan Maluku. The Moluccas is the first place where sago was used as a food staple, and the British East India men, the East India Company people who founded the sago that's being eaten by the local, they brought it back to England. That was in the 1800s. Sorry, 1700s. They brought it back to England, and then sago became used as a pudding back in England. Okay, so if you all know about Mrs. Beeton, Mrs. Beeton is one of the oldest cookery writers in England. In her book, Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management in 1861, published in 1861, she has a pudding where sago is cooked with milk and sugar. Then she serves it with cream and treacle. Treacle, is a liquid brown sugar, right? So when the British who liked it in the 1860s, subsequently they came back. They were ruling parts of say Malacca and Penang. They will ask their local chef, usually the Hainanese chef, can you make this pudding for me? The Hainanese chef will use sago, but instead of cream, because they can't find cream, fresh cream, they use coconut milk. And they can't find treacle, they use gula melaka. So it became one full circle. Something sago that was discovered in this part of the world, brought back to England in the 1700s, and subsequently in 1860s was brought back to here. And the local chefs were told to make it, and they make it using local ingredients. So that's where the sago gula melaka came from. So it shows how the port city get influenced. And of course, in Indonesia, there's a lot of Dutch influences. There's the semur, daging semur. So semur comes from the Dutch word semur, which is stew. And the bergedil, or we call bergedil here, potato croquettes will come frikadel, which are the meatballs, the Dutch meatballs, the frikadel. Rice snaffle, of course, that's a Dutch name for a spread on the table of various curried meats and vegetables with rice. Okay, and it came from their what they encountered in India and also here this part of the world, and then put it all together and say, okay, instead of just rice and one kind of meat, why don't we have rice with a lot of kind of meats? And of course, lapis legit in Indonesia, sometimes it's called spekuk. Lapis legit, spekuk is of course a Dutch oven for baking. Next, I'm going to go and show some interesting pictures. Port cities cuisine. Firstly, I want to talk about intra-Nusantara, that means our cross influences among ourselves. The middle picture you can see is rempah udang, which we have in Penang. It's called rempah udang in Penang and in some parts of Malaysia. In other parts, especially the south, they call it pulut panggang or pulut bakar. Okay, the reason why it's called rempah udang is because I think it was introduced by the Sumatran Malays, especially from Aceh or Medan, and it's called lemper. So when they came, they said this is lemper, but the Penang people, a lot of them are not Malay speaking, especially the Nyonya people who make rempah udang. So they actually pronounce rempah lempa. So when the Indonesians say lemper udang, they heard, oh, lempah udang. So that's how the name rempah udang came out. Because at one point, someone said, hey, we shouldn't be pronouncing lempah. The lempah is not pronounced. It should be rempah. So they actually corrected it wrongly. So instead of calling it lemper udang, it became rempah udang. But the same dish also went to the east coast of Malaysia, Terengganu, where they pronounce lemper, lepa, because it's their local dialect. They don't pronounce the M, So lemper becomes lepa, pulut lepa. So you can see how the name changes, and even the food, the shape of it and the taste also change. The recipe changed, but it's still sticky rice, glutinous rice with desiccated spice coconut milk, and dried shrimp in the middle. Next slide, Emily. Indian influence. One of my favorite Malay kuih of all time, which is savory, is the cucur badak, which is absolutely lovely. I used to think that cucur badak came from this part of the world until in Kerala I came across una kaya, which has been there for like 1,000 years. It was exactly the same. It's so amazing sometimes the influences, Another example that I can think of is the kuih bingka, the kuih bingka in which is made of tapioca, and baked in Malaysia. When I was in London, I brought a couple of friends who are from the Caribbean. They're from Trinidad, to a Malaysian restaurant. We serve kuih bingka. And then They said, hey, how come they have pone? I said, what's pone? And then they Google and they show me. Pone is exactly like our kueh bingka, but in Trinidad, it was introduced to them by the Portuguese. So I never in all my life where I imagine we learn kueh bingka from the Portuguese, you know. So it shows how globally the influences were spread by the Portuguese and the Spanish. So for this case, the chucho badak, they're like the una kaya. So I learned a new food name, you know, una kaya from Kerala. Next slide, Emily. Yeah. Next one, of course, murtabak. You know, murtabak in the Arabic term is, of course, used in Malaysia. Murtabak, we just spell it a bit differently. In Indonesia, it's martabak asin. Again, it's basically flatbread, but with meat, egg, and onion and spice filling. They're quite similar in shape and almost in terms of texture, but in taste, it's very localized. I find the murtabak asin in Indonesia has a lighter taste compared to the Malaysian murtabak. Next slide, Emily. And of course, in Indonesia, there's martabak manis and martabak asin. Martabak asin is the murtabak. Martabak manis is actually adopted from the Hokkien Chinese. It's also called terang bulan in Indonesia, and they make it very, very rich. In fact, the best for me personally, the best tasting, what we call the Hokkien call Bincang. The best tasting one is in Indonesia. Is the martabak manis, because ours only have sugar and crushed peanuts, but the one in Indonesia has got cheese, chocolate, sweetened condensed milk, butter, a lot of things in there. So, and there are nuts, it's even mixed nuts. It's not just the ground nuts, they got cashew nuts, and they got all everything chopped out and put it together. The origin of this pancake, this thick pancake, is interesting. It's not that old. It doesn't go 1,000 years ago. It was only around in the 1860s. And as usual in China, when something is invented, they say it's not by a cook, it's by a famous general or famous king or whatnot. In this case, they say it's from General Cho. General Cho Chun Tang, in this part of the world, is the one who created Bincang, because when he was a Manchu general, when the Manchu troops, the Qing dynasty troops, were in Fujian to hunt for the last of the Song dynasty rebels, they at one point they ran out of food. You know, they ran out of meat. And then the army cooks were telling the general, what can we feed the army? And the general said, we are in Fujian. Fujian is famous for sugar cane. You know, the Hokkiens like sugar cane. They're also for the groundnuts. So you use groundnuts and they use groundnuts and sugar and fill it into the pancakes. So from there, that was the origin of the Bincang. General Cho, of course, in American Chinese restaurant, there's General Cho's chicken, which I think people like Mo would have encountered that in the US. But of course, General Cho did not invent the chicken dish, but he invented this one. Okay. So I think terang bulan, I have had good ones in Jakarta as well. I think there was one in Glodok, in Jalan Pecenongan. The stall is quite interesting because the huge stall, half of it sells martabak manis, half selling martabak asin. Although you can't see why they want to sell the two, because the two have totally different ingredients and totally different preparation. The only thing they share is the name martabak. One is savory, one is sweet. But of course, you can get good martabak manis anywhere in Java. I've had it in Malang, in Jogja, you know, in even smaller towns like Kediri, you know, Solo, you know. Okay, next slide, Emily. The curry puff. In Malaysia, the curry puff is what we get all the time. The shape of the curry puff actually came from the Spanish and Portuguese empanadas. In the Philippines, they call it empanadas. And I think the filling that they have in the Philippines with raisins and sometimes meat, sweet and savory one, is closer to the original. In Malaysia, we also were influenced by the Indians, the Indian samosa. The samosa, we were influenced by that filling. The filling is spiced potatoes. Again, potatoes is introduced by the Portuguese, because before the Portuguese came to this part of the world, there are no potatoes. So we spiced potatoes from the Indians. We put it into empanadas, and we came up with curry puff, which is actually a British term. They're the British puff, for pastry. Yeah? So it shows the different influences, layer upon layer. Okay. Next slide. Being from Penang, of course, we cannot not talk about Penang Asam Laksa. Penang Asam Laksa is quite interesting because in Malaysia we have different laksa from different parts of different states. And I think when I talked to Pak William also, he also talked about Aceh Laksa, which is their own version. What's interesting about our Penang Laksa is that it's fish-based, because the Malacca and the Singapore's Katong Laksa, which comes from Malacca's Nyonya Laksa, are shrimp-based. It's based on dried shrimp as a basis with the spices. But the one in Penang is fish-based, and it's similar to the ones that you get in Medan and also Aceh, and also similar to those that you get from southern Thailand. Of course, in Thailand, they call it Kanam Chin Nam Ya. It's a totally different taste profile, but it still means fish. The Burmese national dish is the mohinga. The only similarity is that they use rice noodle. Again, their taste profile is very different from ours, different kind of spice combination, but it's also fish-based. What's interesting is that when in 1786, when Francis Light was setting up, the first suburb closest to where he landed is today's Pulau Tikus. So in Pulau Tikus, from that year onwards, the Baba Nyonya people from Malacca settled there because the British told them, we are moving all our business to Penang. Don't stay in Malacca, come over here. So they came up. So that's the start of the Peranakan culture in Penang. They were living side by side with the Siamese, who were from refugees from Kedah, and then the Burmese, who came down from what was British India. That time Burma is under British India. So these three communities were living very close together. I think you all will know, when if you go to Pulau Tikus today, there's the Dami Karama Burmese temple, there's the Wat Chaya Mangkalaram Chinese temple. There was a Chinese village which they tore down recently. So they were all living cheek by jowl together. And then they influence and counter-influence each other. So that's anyway, what we have today is a result of that. So Nusantara food, what's the future? I would say in the future, because of globalization, greater movement of people, it may lead to a greater consciousness of what constitute authentic flavors. So whereas in the past we try to make do with whatever we have to closely approximate what we can recreate from our taste memory. Today we have more access to ingredients, the actual ingredient that we need. We have more access to the real recipes, and even the people. People are moving. They're more mobile today. In the old days, for a Burmese or Siamese or Indonesian people to come to another part of the Nusantara, it takes a long while. But now it's a matter of hours by plane or anything. Yeah. So you probably see greater authenticity next time. There may be fusion cuisine, but we'll see, because people now are more conscious about the differences in the taste profiles. So they will be more, they'll be more demanding for things that actually taste good, not fusion for the sake of being fusion. If you see the bottom of the picture there, it's very interesting. It's about nasi padang versus nasi kanda. That was one of the things that I was asked about when I was conducting the training for the Tour Guides Association of Penang. Someone asked me, a lot of tourists come and they ask me, what's the difference between nasi padang and nasi kanda? Because both are just rice with a lot of curry that you can choose to eat with the rice. So I was saying, well, nasi kanda Nasi kanda is actually from Penang. It started in Penang, and it's South Indian Muslim actually in origin. All the original nasi kanda purveyors were from Ramnat district in Tamil Nadu. Ramnat district, also known as Ramanathapuram, Muslim, Indian Tamil Muslim villages. So when the Ramnat people are very famous cooks, when they came to Penang in the late 19th century, they were cooking. They were cooking and they're selling their curries. But the thing is that the Ramnat people are all men. So the only people who were selling spices at the time were the spice ladies from Tenkasi and Kadaya Nalor, which are two other Indian Muslim communities who were living in Georgetown at the time. So what you have is the Ramanathapuram men buying spices from Tenkasi and Kadaya Nalor and cooking their curry from that, which is why nasi kanda in Penang tastes different from whatever you get in Tamil Nadu back in India. Well, in India, why would someone from Ramnat district go all the way to Tenkasi or Kadaya Nalor to get their spices? Yeah. Nasi kanda is South Indian. Nasi Padang, of course, is Minang, is Indonesian. Yeah. So it's a very Nusantara in this profile. Nasi Padang, a lot of time, even today, the people who are cooking is women. They use wet spices mainly because their spices will be ginger, galangal, lemongrass, fresh turmeric, turmeric leaves and all that. Coconut milk, they use coconut milk because it's Nusantara. So you're talking about wet spices. Nasi kanda, besides the onions and the ginger, the rest are all dry spices. They use cumin and coriander and cardamom and all that, star anise, cinnamon stick. So nasi padang versus nasi kanda, you have wet spices versus dry spices. You have basically Indonesian, Minang, Padang versus South Indian, Penang. You have a matriarchal one, mainly women cooking and women serving. So nasi kanda is men cooking and men serving. Traditionally, it's all men. So you have two. One is yin, one is yang. Yeah. So that's the difference between nasi padang versus nasi kanda. Okay. That's all I have to say for today. If we can have questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Peter, for
Thank you,
sharing.
Peter.
Yeah. Sorry, Mo, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah. So essentially, we've come to this point where we have the questions coming in, and these are some of the. I guess these are the responses that we have from the questions, right?
These are the pre-webinar poll.
Oh, right. This is the results of our pre-webinar poll. A lot of you guys had asked, how familiar are you with Penang culinary? Sorry, when we asked, how familiar are you with Penang's culinary culture? 38% said moderately familiar. And I can tell by the Slido questions, there are quite a lot of questions in regards to Malaysia, Indonesia, and a lot of Malaysia, Indonesia.
Yeah.
and Hokkien as well. Sorry, yeah.
We have about 6 minutes left, so I suppose that we can actually wrap it up with the questions that we can answer the questions from Slido. Is that okay, Peter?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let me just switch to Slido. Okay, let me go to Slido.
Of course, special thanks to Emily for being our visual person, so neither Peter or I have to share anything. It takes the headache off the presentation.
No problem.
Oh, yeah.
We're all working as a team.
And of course, Amar, I literally did not know there's literally durian and cheese in that movie. That was crazy, the link that you shared. All right, so here are the questions. The top one: why is Malaysian food more focused on curries and spices, while Indonesian food leans towards soups and roasted or fried ingredients? That's a good question.
It's very interesting because actually the Malaysian food is actually closer to Padang. We have a lot of influence of Padang and Minang, which is the where we get the spices and the curry. And the thing is, because Sumatra people are the one that's closest to India, they are the one that has a lot of influence from India.
Oh,
When you talk about Indonesian, from the person who asked this, he probably refers to the Javanese, because Java people, of course, they don't really go for curry, the gulai, the curry. They go for the
Right.
the lontong, the soto, which is soups. And I know people in especially Central and East Java, they like everything deep fried and all that. The ayam goreng Jogja, and they have the deep fried tempeh, different tauhu and all that. So yeah, if you go to Surabaya, you go to even Central Java onwards, you hardly go see restaurant that serve curry. They will serve with soups and deep fried. But I would say the Javanese cuisine is really how to say, it's reflective of the kind of culinary culture of Java. Whereas the Malaysia, because of the strong influence from Sumatra, especially the Padang and the Minang style. Because the Minang people have been coming to even Malacca pre-Portuguese time. They settled in Malacca, and then they even set up their own state, Negeri Sembilan, which is Holy Minang. And then you can see the Minang style of cooking affects Perak as well. In the Kedah, in the north, there's a lot of influence of Aceh, the Aceh, which is also Sumatra. In the south, Johor in Singapore is influenced by the Riau Islands, which is also part of the southern Sumatra. So I would say Malaysia and Sumatra have a lot of commonalities. Yeah. Whereas in Java, it's a totally different food culture. So that's why.
Actually, I think for the second question, by another anonymous person, what is the best food in Jakarta? I want to ask Amar this one because he's actually in Jakarta. So Amar, what is the best food in Jakarta in your own words?
Yeah. Yeah, the best was in Jakarta is nasi uduk. Nasi uduk is the nasi lemak version of Indonesian. So it's a similar, but have a strong spice, more spice than the nasi lemak. But I interested in the first question, why the Malaysian is influenced strongly by the Indian flavor.
Oh wow! Yes, please tell us.
Yeah, because in general, if you come to Indonesia and taste the food, in general, Indonesian cuisine strongly influenced by the Chinese. Soup is the Chinese style when we eat, and the Malaysian influenced by the Indian. And if you zoom in island by island, in Sumatra, especially Padang, I was in Padang yesterday, and when I read the history, Barus is the first uh, Indian or Tamil community in Nusantara. So their taste may be influenced in the Minang, and then if you come to Padang, you can find the coconut based food. And if the Japanese migrate to Padang, they don't like the food because the Japanese more maybe vegetarian.
Yeah.
Japanese eat pecel.
So
This is pecel is the original indigenous food. Pecel.
Yes.
Pecel is
wait,
a
are
salad
you saying
with
that
peanuts.
because how close Indonesia is to China, their food tends to be more influenced by Chinese cuisine, and then Malaysia tends to be more towards the Indian side because we're in the middle, right? We have that beautiful U-shaped Malacca Strait, right, and then China on the right, and then India on the left. Is that the reason why?
Yeah, because refers to the Peter presentation in the first slide, that Lasem is the ancient part that the Chinese community was been there for in the 7th century, and there was a Chinese community in Lasem, and my home is to my original home, not in Jakarta, Semarang, yes, there's a 2 hours from Lasem, and if we go to Lasem, we can see the ancient ship that came from 7th century. It means that Lasem is the big port for the Chinese Peranakan go there. And if you come to Lasem, all of the batik makers in Lasem is
Yeah.
Chinese, not a Japanese.
Ah,
The Chinese motif, but
oh,
batik, Chinese
Wait.
batik.
What? You
You can
kidding me?
find it
For
in
reals?
Lasem.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, maybe it's all Mo and Peter. So I can say that
See,
Indonesian
this
more
is why we need
influenced
to do
by
more
Chinese
like
than Indian.
international stuff. I didn't know any of that at all, and the fact that you're
Yeah,
over
very
there like
cool.
just blew my mind. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Very cool.
And one thing in Indonesia, they don't say this is Chinese food, this is Javanese food, or this Peranakan food. Every food is Indonesian. So the
Is that
dish is
true?
Indonesian food. You know, you will ask, ada makanan nyonya kah di Indonesia? They'll get very upset. Apa tu nyonya? Hanya ada makanan Indonesia. You know.
Okay, wow.
Yeah,
Talk about a really
yeah.
interesting cultural
It's
exchange
just
here.
one type of cuisine, Indonesia. They will not say this is a nyonya dish. That's like it's not like Malaysia. Oh, this is nyonya dish. This is an Indian dish. This is a Malay dish.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
What's
So
the,
so you're
sorry?
saying go for it.
I just wanted to know what is the next questions that we will pick, and I think that would be the last question, seeing that we are overshot by 2 minutes.
Great conversation just had been done as
That
well.
is correct. That is correct. Maybe next time I can actually prolong it for a little bit.
Yeah, do a part two. I think we just scratched on something here. Like even for me, I feel like this is something I didn't know of.
For sure. I mean, I think after this, what we can do is, if you have any questions, you can definitely still email us. Of course, right after this, we will send out all the additional content, Peter's presentation slide, and we can always still be in touch over Gmail.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Mhm.
So what's the next question we should do, you think?
Peter, would you like to choose?
I can't see from here. It's too small for me. You choose.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me pick one question from Ning Se. How can we identify the origin of cuisine we cook in our daily life in our household? Usually, I cook some cuisines that contain garlic, onion, pepper, chili.
Oh, that's a good question. How do we
Mhm.
identify the ingredients?
I think when you cook something at home, first you start with is that from your heirloom recipe, like your grandmother, and then where does your grandmother come from, and then what and then try and trace it back your family where they come from.
Mm.
I remember at Penang there was a big argument that time when people are making nyonya chang, the rice dumpling, and then Penang, Dr. Ong Jin Tiong, who's the expert who wrote the books of Penang heritage food, said nyonya, the chang in Penang we call kwa kiam ti. They don't call the word nyonya, and it's always white in color. You don't use the word blue. No bunga telang blue, which is Malacca. But there was one woman who kept arguing with him, saying, "No, my grandmother is a Penang nyonya, but she made blue one," and she kept arguing until I posed a question and said, "Where does your grandmother come from?" Oh, mother's from Malacca.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think if you want to find out about your origin, ask yourself, where does your grandmother, your grandparents, so if it's an heirloom recipe, where do they come from? Are they Hokkien? Are they Hakka? If they're Chinese, if they are Malay, are they Melayu from Sumatra, or are they Javanese? Are they Mandailing and all that? So each of them will have their own food culture. So
What if?
there,
I'm sorry, Peter. What if the food contains garlic, onion, pepper, and also chili? Can you guess?
no, you can't, because those are just condiments. Those are just condiments. Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like how in America the South has the holy trinity, which is what garlic, pepper, and celery. Or something like that. That's like the quaternary of Southeast.
Yeah,
like
the
garlic,
Holy
onion, pepper,
Trinity.
chili, everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Any question? Just one last question from the floor instead of picking from Slido. Anybody wants to ask questions right now? Going
Oh, you mean they can
once.
turn on their mic and then maybe ask something?
Hi, hello. I have a question. My name is Jan. Thank you for the great for the great presentation. I'm just very curious, like how can we find like recipes of what the food was like before the European colonization, like ingredients, like we didn't have chili and potatoes. So it's quite hard to imagine what a dish would look like way back then. Like, how can we find such recipes?
I think there are published academic papers about like the old the old how would say maybe ancient recipes and all that,
Wow.
but it's not readily available as a cookbook or recipe book. We don't have that for this region, unfortunately.
I think I can fill in on that one. And it's only because my mother used to be a professor at USM. She's retired now, and her study was on the Austronesian exodus or migration. So to actually fill in, to sort of give you a sort of answer, is that if you want to see what food was like before colonialism came to our part of the world, we can actually look at some of Papua New Guinea and the Polynesian islands as a glimpse of what our food was like at the point when we breached off, where some of us came towards the Malacca Straits and the rest went closer towards the Polynesian islands and beyond. So that would be easily 40,000 years ago. So we know that we had a lot of pit roasted chicken, pork, or beef if it's available. We had a lot of taro, and rice wasn't really a thing. It was mostly taros, fish, and pit roasted meat. But after that, that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy Dr. Nasha and the new research coming out of USM, because we can finally fill that gap. So hence why it's sort of an answer, but a lot of it we don't know yet.
Yeah, I was Googling the other day on Sri Vijaya, what do they eat cuisine. One of the items is actually sago. But they didn't say how they cook that. But last time sago, they just cook it and then they eat it with meat, right? It's never sweet. It's always savory as a starch, So apparently the Sri Vijaya, they also had wheat, our gandum,
Peter, I'm
Yes.
here. Hey,
Hello.
Angka actually posted the questions. The Kalinga Kingdom Binunkis. The Kalinga Kingdom.
Kalinga?
Kalinga, the Indian one.
Kalinga Kingdom of India. Kalinga Kingdom.
Okay.
So during their prime time, there was this famous dish known as binunkis. Binunkis. I type it inside the chat box.
Okay.
I think so. That is very similar with the rempah udang that you posted.
Which is the
earlier.
sticky rice thing, right?
Yeah. Is it any possibility that just now we're asking about what is the food that before the colonizations of European happens, before the new world food that come into? Is this kind of food that could be that the answer of that?
Yeah, because the influence of the Indian culture and civilization on the Nusantara cannot be understated. So if they can lend them the language, a lot of the language we use is from Sanskrit. You can lend us their language, their religion, Hindu, Buddhism. Why not? They also introduce their food to us. So it's a very clear like possibility that yes, it's another food that actually originates from the Indian subcontinent. Sometimes the more we read, the more interesting it gets, because December 2023 I was in Kerala, and we were in Alipay, and then we are looking at we're in Cochin. I think we are looking at the Jewish influence there, and the Jewish actually came up with a pancake, thin pancake, which is a forerunner of the appam, because they make the pancake for worship in the church, in the synagogues, and then the local who were there, they start making it outside the synagogue, and then they start distributing it. So the Indian appam, which is 2,000 years old, possibly came from the Jews, the early Jewish settlers there. But of course, there are other papers, research paper from other academicians there, that dispute that. They say, no, it cannot be from the Jews. We are other part of India that make it, But these are all similar. Sometimes things are similar. It could be the Keralans got theirs from the Jews, but those who are from Bengal or Tamil Nadu got it from the other, equivalent kind of creation. It's just like nasi lemak and nasi udon, right? Who came up with it? Did the Malays in Malaysia
Yeah.
nasi lemak, or the Malays Sumatra come up with nasi udon?
It's like the chicken and egg situation.
Yeah, it could be a parallel creation, like the pyramids in Egypt and the pyramids of the Mayans. They never had any interaction, but they both built something similar.
But it's
Correct.
interesting though. Like I think we just found out that if you can trace where certain recipes came about, you can almost put a date on when we globalized.
When you start-
Before the records of the colonialists, we can say, oh hey, India, China, and the Majapahit-ish area, came together at which point.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
a
just
map undiscovered.
It's just like our nasi lemak, right? We have discussed it before. It's the holy trinity of rice and coconut milk and sambal, right? But if the Portuguese didn't come in 1511, there are no chili, we will never have sambal. So by that argument, we'll never have some nasi lemak, right?
Yeah, I
Sambal.
cannot imagine nasi lemak without sambal. Can't imagine.
It'll just be nasi.
Nasi and ikan
Rice and
bilis.
coconut milk. Yeah.
All right. Shall we get
Okay.
one more last question from the floor?
I think we should.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this, like for reals. This is like both hosting a show and learning at the same time.
Yeah. Good first session.
So the next question, let's see, because a lot of it had to do with a question very similar to the beginning.
Most
Oh,
welcome.
but I like this one. Out of all the groups that came to Penang, I guess this one's a very Penang specific one, like the Hokkien Chinese, Indians, and Peranakans, etc. Which ones do you think shaped Penang's food the most? I guess this one's directed to
question.
Peter.
For me personally, I feel that the earliest and most influential one are the Tamil Muslims. Yeah, or they shape what we recognize as Penang food today. They bring their paratha, and our paratha become our roti canai. They bring curried rice dishes and became our nasi kanda, things like that. So, for me, I mean, in a way, it's very hard to pinpoint any one specific group or any one specific culinary culture, because Penang is exactly that. It's a collection, or it's almost like an emporium of different culinary cultures, all coming together in one place, which makes it so special. Which is why Penang is so it's so seen as very unique in Malaysia, for example. For me, like when I go to Kelantan, because I'm half Kelantanese, I like Kelantanese food, but Kelantanese food can be very mono-ethnic, monocultural. There's no comparison with Penang food, which it can be suddenly, you have roti canai, murtabak. Then suddenly you have wonton noodles. Then suddenly you have, Malay nasi lemak. We have nasi lemuni, which is a northern Malaysian dish that you don't get in Selangor and all that. And it's only made in Kedah and Penang and Perlis.
Penang.
Yeah, so it's so unique,
What about the Indonesian side, Amar? Like, what's the biggest influence on food there across the straits to your side of the world?
Simple. The same question was asked to Pak William Wongso by Gordon Ramsay, and he says Minang food, Padang. He said Indonesia. Indonesia is so big, 17,000 islands, hundreds of ethnic culture, so many kind of culinary food and all that. One cuisine that everyone knows, Padang food. Beef rendang. Everyone has got beef rendang.
Oh yeah.
I can't complain about beef rendang. Yeah. That's like the OG best dish ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Emily is right, because we do have, if I remember correctly, this weekend, Peter is doing a food tour within Penang as well. And Emily, do we have a video on that one, Emily?
We do have a video on that one. I do you want to share now, or can I just put it on the our what do you call that, or on the email?
I think either or. What do you guys think? Do you think we should just share it now, just to show like what Peter looks like on this tour?
Do we have time?
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. Emily, do we have time, or probably
We're,
not?
we're running 15 minutes over already. So I
Oh, okay.
guess what I will do is I will share the link in the email along with all the additional content from today's webinar. So I think before we wrap it up, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Peter. Really very informative.
And Amar
Um,
as well. Like all the way from a different country. I
yeah,
love
and
it.
I'm really glad to see that it's a good number of Indonesians and also Malaysians that join this webinar. We already have two upcoming webinars. It's just that we haven't locked down the date, but we have already locked down the speakers. So we will have Amar will be sharing on the ancestors of maritime Southeast Asian, and
Oh,
then
nice.
we will have a tourist guide from Indonesia, Mas Yoga. Mas Yo will be sharing on Majapahit influence in Malay Peninsula. So we will be in touch with Amar and also Masio to get their, when is the best date for them to do it, and then we will share out all the details. So I'm looking forward to more participation from everybody. And if anyone has if you have any topics that you want to propose or any speaker that you want to propose, just contact us.
All right,
That's all.
and yeah, thank you, Emily, for setting all this up. This is a great idea.
No problem.
Cross-cultural exchange and learning, and thank you everybody for being here. I didn't expect so many people to be here and still
Yeah,
be active. The chat went off quite a fair bit. I also got involved, so
I love
everybody,
it.
thank you.
Yeah. If any feedback, just give it to us also. We can always improve it.
Yeah, let's make this awesome.
Hmm.
All right, good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night. Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Thanks, Amar. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Emily, Mo, Peter.
Bye.
You're so welcome, my friend.
Okay,
Is that your son?
thank you. Yeah, my son.
Yeah, he looks like you, exactly like you.
Yeah.
I think he is more Asian, more East Asian than me.
He's more easy. Wow. Hope to see you again, my
Yeah,
friend. Hope to see you again. I'll let you know when
yeah,
I'm in
thank
Jakarta
you.
next. We have to catch up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Catch up, you guys.